All right, so the next thing we're going to do is now that we have selected the paragraph style, we're going to hit the plus right here. And we'll just call this paragraph style 2. I'm going to hit enter. So this is going to be paragraph style 2. Decide what color you want it. You can change it later. I'm going to say it's going to be yellow for now, and I'm going to use 14-point font. Now when I deselect it and I hit W, you'll notice that there's going to be this little plus right here, and that means it doesn't fit inside this box. So you can resize your box. And maybe I don't want it to be that much text. I'll just delete that last bit of filler text. Make your text box about the same size as your text. You don't want it to be really, really spilling out over here. It makes things confusing. So what's cool about this, though, is let's say that you later on decide, I'm going to also have a couple of text boxes over here. And maybe they're going to be, less text. So I'll just do something like this. And I'm also going to have some headings on them, has some headlines. So it's going to be headline 2 and headline 3. But let's say that we changed our mind and we actually don't like the way this text looks. We actually don't like the yellow. What I can do now is say, you know what? I'm going to go with a different color. I'm going to go with that blue from the title, or I'm just going to go with black. Let's see. Yeah, that looks good. Now that I've got the black selected, I'm going to redefine the style, paragraph 2. And guess what? It'll go through. Well, it didn't work. For some reason, it's not working. But let me just pick paragraph 2 again here. There. It should go through automatically and adjust all of them. Let me try it for headline 1. If I say headline 1, you know what? I actually want you to be blue, just like the title. And then again, redefine. And then it automatically will change all the other ones that are headline 1. So those are styles that you're creating. The next thing I want to do is probably start thinking about how am I going to organize this. So thinking about using that grid system, it kind of helps you plan things out and keep things in like an organized fashion. You can look at the grids and say, okay, I want that in the middle of these grids. But also you got to stay inside your pink right here, this margin right there. So let's make sure that our title is not poking out there. So I'll just select my title and let me just pull the text font size down a little bit. I'm having a hard time selecting it. Something might be getting in the way. It looks like the portrait of me. Let me just lock it again. Okay, so I'm just going to pull this down until it is no longer over my margins and just shuffle it down a little bit. Perfect. That is exactly where I want it. Now I'm going to, I got this in a pretty nice spot. Let's stick this on the bottom of this line, just so the text is sitting right there. Also, if your text box is too big, just double click and it'll actually shrink it right up to that spot. This one needs to go here, but I want it to be over the pink, and it's actually going to overlap me a little bit. I'm okay with that. And then I'll stick that one there. Let's put this headline here on this line. Double click to keep that, shrink that size. And then line these guys up so that they're right underneath each other. And same thing with these. These little guidelines will kind of show up to help you. So we got headline 2, headline 3, we got our title. What other things does a magazine need? The next thing, let's take a look at some other samples real quick. And we're getting close to the end. Down at the bottom, a lot of times there's like a kind of a subheadline. So I might want to do some stuff with that, like kind of a, subheading that kind of tells me a little bit more about what the story is about. So I know it's going to be about me, but I don't know really what specifically it's going to be about me. So maybe I'll put a text box that kind of uses these squares right here. And it's, for now, I don't really know what I'm going to put. So I'll just make this text nice and big and I'll just fill it with placeholder text. Type Fill with placeholder text. Your Yabo? And this stuff is just a made up language. You don't have to worry about what it actually means. Make sure that it's a color that you can actually see nicely. Figure out where you want it. If you want to center it, put it centered. Maybe I want there to be a little bit more filler text. Maybe I'll go all the way out to here. So let's try that again. Type, fill with placeholder text. There we go. Your Yabo Odit. Okay, so then I want to decide, using this grid system, maybe it would look really nice right here. Boom. Like on this little bottom section. Or let's hit W to see how everything looks. Starting to feel like a magazine. I'm not hating it. Are there any other things in a magazine that we haven't quite gotten? I feel like we got most of the big things. I'm going to next think about, my color scheme and how I want to lay it out. And then the actual content, I want you to actually write some headlines for yourself. What is it actually going to say? Feel free to use other magazines for kind of inspiration. I don't generally like boxes around, like text boxes like this, but use it sparingly if you want to use it maybe one time. You could put the text more on your photo. Oh, one last thing. You have to think about how are you going to organize these text boxes. So it's pretty common for the text to be aligned to the left, but maybe you want it to be aligned centered. And sometimes in magazines in particular, there's this thing right here called justify. And what that does, don't worry about these other ones, but what that does is it actually spills the text so it touches both sides. And that can look kind of cool in certain situations. Except for the last line, it won't do it to that last line. But if you wanted to kind of do that, sometimes it can look cool and sometimes not. So think about how you want to, align these. Do you want these to be centered, or do you want them to be justified to the left? Or maybe on this side, they'll be on the right, and on this side, they'll be on the left, and then just kind of line these guys up. And again, I encourage you to keep using your grid. Say, okay, we're going to make sure we stay on our margins here. And that looks nice and kind of lined up right there. That looks kind of nice here. Maybe you want to just kind of center all this so it's in between these two or whatever. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Just again, you do now have to come up with the title. What magazine are you going to be on the cover on? What is something that you might be like arts? Maybe the magazine's just called art because you're an artist or whatever. Think about what kind of font would fit with the style of an art magazine. What would be the headline here? What are they going to say about you? America's next upcoming. I'll just say America's next Monet. I like Monet. And then maybe I can pull that down a line. Or I can just say, you know what? If I'm going to do that, I want to make the font smaller. Control A to select all of it. Put a question mark there so I don't look conceited. There we go. America's next Monet. Maybe. And then come up with some headlines that are catchy. Something that's going to grab our attention so we buy your magazine. And any other cool little flashy things you can put on there. Some people like to put a little barcode. I don't really care about that. But yeah. That is, some people like to put frames around it like this. You can definitely do that. If you choose to put a frame around it, go for it. Some people, there's no real right or wrong way to do it. But try to be creative and come up with a style of your own. Don't just copy exactly one magazine. Don't make it look exactly like Time. But create something unique based upon inspiration you see from other things.